Money. We think about it all the time. We work for it, we save it, we spend it. It feels so solid, so real. But what if I told you that almost all of it isn't real at all? What if it's just a story we all agree to believe in?
You probably feel like you've got a pretty good handle on it, right? I mean, it's the cash in your wallet, the number you see when you log into your bank account. How complicated can it be?
Well, it turns out the real story of money is so much weirder and way more fragile than most of us imagine. We're about to peel back the layers on how all of this actually works, and you might be surprised by what we find. All right, let's just jump right in with a pretty bold statement. Your bank account balance is basically a lie. And the recent collapse of Silicon Valley Bank was this huge flashing warning sign for all of us. It ripped the curtain off a secret that's at the very heart of the banking system. So think about it. Where is your money right now? Do you picture it sitting in a giant vault somewhere, neatly stacked up with your name on it? Because that's the image we all have in our heads. But that's not what happens. It's not even close. The system we actually use is called fractional reserve banking. And it means that when you give the bank your money, they don't just hold on to it. They're only required to keep a tiny little piece of it. The rest, they loan it out. And right now in the US, that fraction they have to keep on hand is about 10%. Yeah, you heard that right. For every $100 you deposit, the bank only has to keep $10. The other $90 is immediately sent back out into the economy as a loan. And this is where things get really wild. This process creates something called the money multiplier effect. So let's walk through this. Say you deposit $10,000. The bank holds on to $1,000 and loans out $9,000 to someone buying a car. That person pays the car dealership, which then deposits that $9,000 into its bank. Now that second bank keeps $900 and loans out $8,100. You see the pattern? It just keeps going. Your original 10 grand through this cycle of lending literally creates almost $100,000 of new money out of thin air. So as journalist Johnny Harris puts it, the whole system is built on this idea. It's an incredible engine for economic growth, sure, but it all hinges on one thing, our trust. It only works because we all believe our money is there, and we don't all try to pull it out at the same time. Because if we do, like what happened with Silicon Valley Bank, we discover very quickly that it isn't. Okay, so if the number in our bank account is just part of this huge web of loans and promises, then what even is money? To get to the bottom of this, we've got to go back to basics. What's its actual purpose? If you look up the official definition, it's pretty simple. Money is just a tool. It's anything or any record that we all agree to accept as payment. And the key words there are generally accepted. It has no value unless we all decide it does. And for this tool to work, it has to do three things really well. First, it's a medium of exchange, so you don't have to trade a chicken every time you want a cup of coffee. Second, it's a unit of account. It gives us a shared ruler for value. We all know that coffee costs $3. And third, it has to be a store of value. You need to be able to save it and trust that it'll be worth about the same tomorrow. Now, what we've used as money has changed so much over time. It's this incredible journey from physical stuff you can hold to something that's totally abstract. And understanding that story is key to figuring out our world today. For most of human history, there was no money. There were just complex systems of favors, gifts, and debts. Then we started using commodity money, actual stuff with value, like barley or salts. Then you get the Lydians, who came up with a brilliant idea, stamped gold and silver coins, a guaranteed value, a huge leap forward. 1,000 years ago in China, we see the first paper banknotes, basically an IOU for a chunk of gold. But the biggest change of all, that happened in 1971. That's when the US officially cut the dollar's link to gold, and the whole world entered the modern era of pure fiat money. And none of this happened by accident. Every single step was an innovation, a solution to a problem. Carrying around tons of barley is a pain. Gold coins are heavy. Paper is light, easy to divide, and super convenient. The history of money is really just our species looking for a better, more efficient tool. Which brings us right back to that big question from the beginning. If our money today isn't backed by a physical thing like gold, what is it backed by?
Well, the answer is kind of mind-blowing.
It helps to look at it this way. You have commodity money, like a gold coin. The coin has value because it's made of gold. It is the value. Then you have fiat money, like the dollar in your wallet. That piece of paper has no real value on its own. It only represents value. It's a symbol. So what gives it value? Well, it's a social agreement. It works because the government says, this is our official money. And then, more importantly, because we all just believe it. We all agree to accept it. Modern money is basically a collective story we tell ourselves, a shared fiction that somehow keeps the entire global economy running. But here's where it gets really interesting. If money is just a human invention, if it's just a story, that means we can change the story. And that opens up some really amazing possibilities for the future.
Some thinkers argue we need to see money for what it really is, a claim on the work and resources of everyone else in society. And if you think of it that way, well, then we can start designing different kinds of money to achieve different kinds of goals.
And we're already seeing this happen. There are local currencies that are designed to keep wealth inside a single community. There are social lending platforms and mobile money systems that are changing lives in the developing world. And then, of course, there's stuff like Bitcoin, a really radical experiment to build a whole new kind of money that's totally separate from banks and government. All of these new ideas bring up this huge question. Is the system we have now the only way? Or could we, with new technology and new thinking, create a financial system that's more fair, more stable, or just better? So the next time you tap your card or check your bank balance, just remember what you're really looking at. It's a symbol of trust. It's a piece of a story that we're all a part of. And the most powerful thing to remember is that the story isn't over. We get to decide what happens in the next chapter.